The rain wasn't just falling, it was attacking. I stood there on the stone pathway, my cardigan soaked through, clutching a cardboard box that was disintegrating in my hands. Inside were the pathetic remnants of my marriage, a coffee mug with "World's Best Wife" printed on it, 3 framed photos, and the little porcelain bird Gavin gave me on our 2nd anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was being thrown out like garbage, and I was literally holding garbage. Gavin stood on the covered porch, dry as a bone, with her tucked under his arm. Bella, 6 months pregnant, glowing with that smug satisfaction only a mistress-turned-victor can radiate. She wore my silk robe, the one I'd bought in Paris on our honeymoon. Her hand rested on her belly like she was cradling the Holy Grail itself. And maybe, in Gavin's twisted world, she was. He looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes I'd somehow never noticed in 8 years of marriage, and said the words that would haunt me for months. "It's not personal, Elena. It's the trust fund." Then he did something I'll never forget. He pulled off his wedding ring, our wedding ring, the one we'd chosen together at that tiny jeweler in Vermont, and he threw it. Not handed it to me, not placed it gently in my palm. He threw it into the mud at my feet, where it landed with a wet smack and immediately sank into the brown sludge. "I need a male heir by Christmas to unlock Grandpa's 20 million, he said, like he was discussing a business merger. "You couldn't give me that. Bella's already carrying my future." The box slipped from my hands. The porcelain bird shattered on the stone. And as I bent down in the rain to pick up the pieces, I heard Bella laugh, this high, tinkling sound that made my blood run cold. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a divorce. This was a declaration of war. Fast forward 3 months. The baby shower was everything you'd expect from a man desperate to celebrate his meal ticket before it expired. White roses everywhere, champagne fountains, a string quartet playing Vivaldi, and a cake so tall it needed its own table. Gavin stood at the center of it all in his tailored suit, one hand on Bella's lower back, the other raising a glass to toast the future Lawson heir. I watched from the security camera feed I'd hacked 2 weeks earlier. Don't ask me how. Let's just say a girl learns things when she's got nothing left to lose. And I smiled. The moment arrived at exactly 3:47 p.m. A drone descended from the sky like a metallic angel of reckoning, its propellers whirring so loudly the string quartet stopped mid-note. It landed directly on the gift table, knocking over a tower of Tiffany blue boxes, and deposited a single red envelope. Gavin's face went from confusion to irritation to something close to fear in about 4 seconds. Then my voice, pre-recorded, crystal clear, crackled through the sound system I'd also hacked. "Congratulations, Daddy. But before you cut that cake, open the envelope. The lab has a surprise for you." I watched him tear it open with shaking hands. I watched the color drain from his face as he read the first line. I watched the lawyer, yes, the trust fund lawyer was there to validate the blessed event, snatch the paper and read it himself, his mouth forming a perfect O. And then I watched Gavin's knees buckle just slightly as the words sank in. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. The screen went black, but I didn't need to see anymore. The sound of Bella screaming was music enough. Let me take you back to that night, the night everything ended. We'd just gotten home from dinner at Marcello's, our usual spot, the place where Gavin proposed 3 years earlier. I thought we were celebrating. He'd been distant lately, sure, but I figured it was work stress. I was actually happy that night. God, I was so stupid. We walked through the front door, and he didn't even take off his coat. He just turned to me in the foyer and said, "I need you to leave." Just like that. No preamble, no, "we need to talk." I actually laughed. I thought he was joking, but his face was stone. And that's when Bella walked down our stairs, wearing one of my nightgowns, her hand resting on that 6-month bump like a trophy. "You're a nice person, Elena," Gavin said, like he was firing an employee. "But you're an investment without return. 4 years of trying, 4 years of negative tests. I don't have time for that anymore." He showed me a document on his phone. Grandpa's trust fund has a clause. First legitimate male great-grandchild unlocks $20 million. Deadline is December 25th. Bella's ultrasound confirmed it's a boy. She's 24 weeks along. Do the math. I couldn't breathe. "You've been cheating on me for 6 months." Bella smirked and said, "Longer, actually? But who's counting?" Gavin handed me a suitcase, already packed, and opened the door. The rain had just started. "You have 10 minutes. Everything else stays. The house is in my name. Accounts are frozen. My lawyer will contact you." I stood there until Bella whispered, "Tick-tock. Elena. Some of us have a nursery to decorate." I spent that first night on Miranda's couch, scrolling through my phone in disbelief. Every account showed zero balance. My credit cards were declined. The email from his lawyer was already waiting. Respondent waives right to spousal support due to lack of contribution to marital assets. Lack of contribution. I'd given up my career for him, hosted his dinner parties, held his hand through his father's death. And now I was nothing. That same night, Gavin posted on Instagram a photo of him and Bella in our bed, her head on his chest, his hand on her belly. Caption: "Sometimes life gives you exactly what you need when you stop settling. Blessed, Chark baby boy, Chark new beginnings." 2,000 likes in an hour. Our friends, people I'd considered family, congratulating them. Not one person asked about me. Miranda handed me wine and said, "Elena, you need to let this go. Men like Gavin don't lose. The system is rigged for them." I stared at that Instagram photo. At Bella wearing my grandmother's necklace, the one thing I'd asked to keep. And something inside me shifted. Miranda was right about one thing. Men like Gavin don't lose. But that's only because women like me usually let them win. The trust fund. That's what this whole nightmare boiled down to. Gavin's grandfather, Theodore Lawson III, old money, railroad tycoon, the kind of man who wore cufflinks to breakfast, had died when Gavin was 23. But the old man was smart. Too smart. He knew his grandson was a spoiled, entitled brat who'd blow through an inheritance in 5 years on sports cars and bad investments. So he'd structured the trust with one very specific condition. $20 million would be released only upon the birth of Theodore's first legitimate great-grandson. Not great-grandchild, great-grandson. Because apparently, we were living in the 1800s, and there was a deadline. December 25th of this year. If no legitimate male heir was born by Christmas, the entire $20 million would be donated to charity. Every single penny. I'd known about the trust, of course. Gavin had mentioned it exactly once, on our second date, when he was 3 drinks in and feeling confessional. "My grandpa was obsessed with legacy," he'd said, laughing. "He literally made it so I can't touch the big money until I produce a male heir. It's insane." Back then, I thought it was funny. Antiquated. A weird rich people problem that didn't really matter because we were young and in love, and surely we'd have kids when we were ready. What I didn't know, what Gavin had conveniently failed to mention, was the deadline. He had exactly 8 weeks to produce his golden ticket, and apparently, I'd become a liability he couldn't afford. And God, did he treat Bella like she was made of spun glass and gold leaf? I know this because Miranda's cousin worked at the Mercedes dealership, and she told me Gavin bought Bella a brand new G-Wagon 2 days after I moved out, paid in full, $140,000. But that wasn't all. There were shopping sprees at Neiman Marcus, 5 figures in a single afternoon. A private chef to make sure Bella ate only organic, nutrient-dense meals. A personal trainer who specialized in prenatal wellness. He even converted our home gym into a meditation room with crystal singing bowls and Himalayan salt lamps. I heard he'd canceled a business trip to Singapore, worth millions in potential contracts, because Bella had a dizzy spell at brunch. The same man who'd missed my grandmother's funeral because of a critical meeting was now playing doctor over mild nausea. This wasn't love. This was insurance. Bella wasn't his girlfriend. She was a walking, talking, $20 million investment. But here's the thing that really got me. Bella knew it. She knew exactly what she was to him, and she didn't care. She posted everything online like she was documenting a royal pregnancy. My king surprised me with breakfast in bed, with Gavin looking exhausted in the background. Date night at Lawson Manor, wearing a different one of my necklaces in every picture. Growing our little prince, with her hand on her belly and Gavin's hand gripping so tight his knuckles were white. Every post was a performance. Every caption was a knife twisted in my chest. As for me, I was living a very different reality. I'd found a job at a little bookstore called Page and Prose on the east side of town, the opposite end from where Gavin and I used to live. The pay was barely above minimum wage. My boss, Dorothy, was 70 years old, smelled like lavender and old paper, and asked exactly 0 questions when I showed up with nothing but a resume and desperation. "You look like you need a quiet place," she'd said, hiring me on the spot. The work was simple: shelving books, running the register, making coffee for customers who'd sit for hours reading without buying anything. Dorothy didn't mind. Books are meant to be read, not just sold. It was the opposite of Gavin's world of transactions and return on investment. Here, things just were, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. But I couldn't stop thinking about them. About Gavin and Bella living in my house, sleeping in my bed, building a future with blood money. Late at night on Miranda's couch, I'd stare at the ceiling, imagining them laughing about me. Imagining Bella trying on my clothes, using my skincare products, maybe even reading my journals. And the worst part, I couldn't do anything about it. I had no money for a lawyer, no leverage, no power. I was supposed to just accept it, move on, let them win. But that feeling inside me kept growing, and I started to realize something. Maybe I didn't need money or lawyers or power. Maybe I just needed the truth. The phone call came on a Tuesday. I was shelving romance novels in the back corner of Page and Prose when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't answer. Debt collectors had started circling like sharks the moment Gavin froze our accounts. But something made me pick up. Maybe intuition. Maybe desperation. Maybe just the universe deciding I'd suffered enough. "Mrs. Lawson?" The voice was female, hushed, with a slight accent I couldn't place. "I don't know if you remember me. I'm Carla. I worked at your house. I cleaned for Mr. Gavin." My heart stopped. Carla, yes, quiet woman, maybe 50, who'd always left little origami birds on the kitchen counter. Gavin had fired her a week after Bella moved in. She talked for 15 minutes. I didn't interrupt once. She told me about Bella's late-night phone calls in the garden when Gavin was working late, speaking in whispers and laughing too loud. About the man who'd shown up twice claiming to be a prenatal yoga instructor, except he never brought a mat and the sessions lasted 3 hours. About how Bella would disappear some afternoons for doctor's appointments. But Carla had seen the appointment cards on the counter and the dates didn't match. "Mrs. Lawson," Carla said, her voice dropping even lower. "I don't think that baby is his. I don't have proof. But I worked in that house for 3 years. I know when something is wrong, and this is very wrong." After she hung up, I stood in that alley behind the bookstore for 20 minutes, just breathing. The smell of garbage mixed with rain. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Let Gavin have his fake air and his fake happiness and discover the truth years from now when that kid didn't look anything like him. Let karma handle it. But the other part of me, the part that had been growing stronger since that night in the rain, that part wanted justice now. Not for love. I didn't love Gavin anymore, but he'd thrown me away like I was nothing. He'd made me homeless, penniless, invisible. and he was about to get $20 million because of a lie. I started watching them. Not every day, I couldn't afford to lose my job. But on my days off, I'd take the bus to the old neighborhood and sit in Miranda's old Honda at the end of Cypress Lane, where I could see the gate through the trees. I felt pathetic doing it, like one of those jilted exes in movies, parked outside with binoculars and cold coffee. But I needed to see for myself. I needed to know if Carla was right, or if this was just wishful thinking. The first 3 times, I saw nothing unusual. Gavin left for work at 7 a.m. sharp. Bella would emerge around 10 in designer athleisure, climbing into her G-Wagon to go shopping or to prenatal yoga. She'd return around 2 with bags or takeout, disappear inside, and that was it. Boring. Normal. Exactly what you'd expect from a pregnant mistress living her best life on someone else's dime. But on the 4th day, a Thursday, something different happened. Gavin left at 7 as usual, but at 10:30, before Bella left, a car pulled up. Not a delivery truck, not a luxury vehicle. A beat-up Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, and one of those tacky spoilers. A man got out, late 20s, maybe 30, baggy jeans, backwards baseball cap, the kind of guy who'd sell you weed behind a convenience store. He walked straight through the gate, which meant Bella had given him the code, and disappeared into the house. He stayed for 45 minutes. When he came out, he was yelling. I couldn't hear the words from that distance, but I could see his face, red, angry, aggressive. Bella appeared in the doorway, her hands raised in a placating gesture, that baby bump visible even from where I sat. He jabbed his finger at her stomach. She shook her head. He turned and kicked the stone planter by the door, one of the Italian ones Gavin had imported for $1,200 each, and it tumbled onto the driveway. Then he got in his car and peeled out, leaving tire marks on the cobblestones. Bella stood there for a moment, her hand on her belly, looking around like she was checking if anyone had seen, and then she looked directly at my car. We locked eyes for maybe 3 seconds. My heart exploded. But she didn't do anything. She just turned and walked back inside. And I sat there replaying what I'd just seen, the yelling, the finger pointing at her stomach, the fury of a man who clearly had some kind of claim. Carla was right. Something was very, very wrong. And suddenly, I didn't feel pathetic anymore. I felt like a hunter who'd just spotted her prey. I needed more than a hunch. More than a sketchy guy in a Honda Civic having a meltdown on what used to be my driveway. I needed something concrete, something undeniable, something that would wipe that smug smile off Gavin's face permanently. But I also needed to be smart. Gavin had money, lawyers, and the kind of connections that could make problems disappear. If I was going to do this, I had to be invisible. I had to be patient. And most importantly, I couldn't let anyone know what I was planning. The opportunity came 2 weeks later. Gavin posted on LinkedIn about a quick trip to Boston for investor meetings. 3 days. November 10th through 12th. The post had that fake, humble tone he always used. I screenshotted it. 3 days meant Bella would be alone. 3 days meant she'd get comfortable. 3 days meant she might slip up. I called in sick to work. Dorothy was understanding. Bless her. And on November 10th at 6 a.m., I was parked 2 blocks from the mansion with a thermos of coffee, a baseball cap pulled low, and Miranda's old Canon camera with the zoom lens. The first day was boring. Bella slept until noon. She ordered Uber Eats around 2. At 4, a salon van pulled up, and 2 women went inside carrying cases of equipment. They left 3 hours later. Bella was getting the full princess treatment, and I was sitting in a car that smelled like old French fries, needing to pee. But day 2 was when things got interesting. At 10 a.m., Bella left in the G-Wagon. I followed her, keeping 3 cars back, praying she wouldn't notice Miranda's beat-up Honda. She drove for 40 minutes, leaving our wealthy suburb and heading into a part of town I barely recognized. Strip malls with half the stores boarded up, payday loan places, a pawn shop with bars on the windows. And then she pulled into a medical plaza that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1987. Cracked parking lot, faded sign reading Riverside Medical Center. This wasn't Dr. Montgomery's office, the fancy high-risk OB-GYN on Park Avenue that Gavin had been posting about, the one with the marble floors and the coffee bar. I parked across the street and watched Bella waddle inside, her Gucci bag looking obscenely out of place. She was in there for 90 minutes. When she came out, she was on her phone, and even from that distance, I could see her face was tight with stress. She sat in her car for 10 minutes, just gripping the steering wheel, before finally pulling out. I didn't follow her home. Instead, I walked into Riverside Medical Center myself. The receptionist was a tired-looking woman in her 40s with reading glasses on a chain. I tried to get information about Bella, claiming to be her sister, but the receptionist shut me down immediately. I was about to leave when a door opened behind the desk, and a nurse walked through carrying a stack of files. She was younger, maybe late 20s, and she looked exhausted. The kind of exhausted that comes from double shifts and not enough pay. As she turned, one file slipped and fell to the floor, spilling papers everywhere. I rushed forward. "Here, let me help." We both bent down, gathering papers, and that's when I saw it. A form with Bella's name. Isabella Martinez, date of birth, address, Gavin's address, and a note in the margins, paternity concern, patient requesting early gender confirmation, previous appointment canceled due to insurance issue. The nurse, her name tag said Tanya, snatched it quickly, but not before I'd read it. She knew I'd seen it. The receptionist was on the phone. Distracted, I took a gamble. "Look," I whispered. "I know what this looks like. But that's my husband's house. That woman is living with him, and I just need to know if I'm crazy or if something's really wrong here." Tanya looked at me for a long moment. Then she glanced at the receptionist, still on the phone. "I can't tell you anything," she said quietly. "But hypothetically, if someone came here for appointments their insurance wouldn't cover, and if that someone was worried about paternity enough to request specific testing, and if that someone was being followed by a guy who definitely isn't the rich husband paying the bills," she trailed off meaningfully, "I'd say you're not crazy." I walked back to my car on shaking legs. This was it. This was confirmation. Bella knew the baby might not be Gavin's. She was covering her tracks, using cheap clinics her insurance wouldn't report to Gavin, trying to figure out damage control before the baby arrived. The guy in the Civic wasn't just some ex. He was the potential father. And Bella was trying to run out the clock, praying the baby would be born. Gavin would sign the birth certificate before any tests could be done, and she'd secure her piece of that $20 million pie before anyone discovered the truth. But how do you prove paternity before birth? How do you get DNA from a fetus? From a man who won't willingly give you a sample? From a mistress who's hiding in medical clinics? I drove back to Miranda's that night and did something I never thought I'd do. I opened my laptop and typed into Google, "How to prove paternity before birth without consent." And as I scrolled through the results, that shift inside me completed. I wasn't Elena Lawson, discarded wife, anymore. I was Elena Lawson, private investigator, and my first case was going to be my last marriage. The internet is a beautiful, terrible place. Within 2 hours of searching, I'd learned more about paternity testing than I ever wanted to know. Non-invasive prenatal paternity testing, NIP, was the gold standard. A simple blood draw from the mother, a cheek swab from the potential father, and boom, 99.9% accuracy. The problem? It cost between $1,500 and $2,000, required both parties to consent, and took 7 to 10 business days for results. I had maybe 3 weeks before Bella's due date, no money, and absolutely zero chance of getting Bella or Gavin to voluntarily participate in exposing their own fraud. So, I had to get creative. The forums I found, and yes, I went deep into some ethically questionable Reddit threads and underground genealogy groups, All said the same thing. You need clean DNA samples and a lab that doesn't ask too many questions. Gavin's DNA would be easy. He was a creature of habit. Every Monday morning, he went to Preston Proper, this boutique juice bar where a 16-ounce green juice cost $14 and tasted like lawn clippings. He'd order the executive cleanse, take exactly 3 phone calls while nursing it on the patio, then leave the cup on the table for the staff to clean up. Predictable, weak. But Bella? She was locked in that house like Rapunzel, surrounded by Gavin's money and paranoia. Getting close to her would be impossible, unless I didn't need to get close at all. I remembered something from my museum curator days. We'd had an exhibit on forensic anthropology, and one of the guest speakers had mentioned that pregnancy changes everything about a woman's body, including what's in her bloodstream. After about 8 weeks, fetal DNA circulates in the mother's blood, which meant if I could get a sample of Bella's blood, a sophisticated lab could potentially extract both her DNA and the baby's DNA from the same vial. It was a long shot. It was probably illegal, but it was my only shot. And the opportunity came from the most unexpected source, Bella's vanity. I'd been monitoring her Instagram through a burner account, and she'd been posting about her pregnancy, glow routine, vitamin IVs, hydration therapy, something called a beauty boost treatment at a medical spa called Luminous Med Spa. She'd tagged them in 3 posts. I called them, using my best desperate bride voice. Hi, I'm getting married in 6 weeks and I look exhausted. My friend Isabella recommended your vitamin IVs. Do you have any appointments available? The receptionist was cheerful. Oh yes, Isabella, she comes in every 2 weeks. We have an opening this Friday at 2 p.m. if you'd like to try the Radiance package. I booked it. Not for me, I wasn't going to show up. But now I knew Bella's schedule. Her next appointment would be November 18th, and I had 5 days to figure out how to get into a medical spa's biohazard waste. This is where things got morally gray. Actually, forget gray. This was pitch black. But I was past the point of caring about ethics. I contacted Tanya, the nurse from Riverside Medical Center. I found her on Facebook and sent her a message. This is Elena from the clinic. I need help with something sensitive. Willing to pay. She responded 6 hours later. I can't risk my license. I replied, $500 cash, 1 hour of your time. You don't even have to touch anything illegal. We met at a diner off the highway. Tanya looked exhausted. I work double shifts, she explained. My daughter needs braces. My ex doesn't pay child support. $500 is groceries for a month. I slid the envelope across the table. Money I'd scraped together from tips and a bracelet I'd pawned. Tanya told me how medical spas handle biohazard waste. They're supposed to seal everything in red biohazard bags and have it picked up by licensed companies. But smaller spas cut corners. They'll store it in a locked bin outside until pickup day, usually once a week. She slid a small cooler bag across the table. This is medical grade. Keeps samples cold. And here. She handed me a box of nitrile gloves and a Sharpie. Label everything. Date, time, approximate source. Any lab worth a damn will need documentation, even if it's improvised. I stared at the supplies. Why are you helping me? Tanya's eyes were hard. Because I see women like her every day. Women who lie, cheat, manipulate, and get away with it because they're pretty and pregnant and men are stupid. And I see women like you, women who got discarded, and nobody helps them. Get your proof. Burn them all down. November 18th. I called Luminous Med Spa at 1 p.m., pretending to be Bella. I used the voice I'd perfected after listening to her Instagram stories on repeat, breathy, slightly nasal, entitled, Hi, this is Isabella Martinez. I have an appointment at 2, but I'm running super late. Can we push it to 3:30? They agreed. That gave me an extra 90 minutes. I parked behind the medical plaza at 1:45, wearing all black, hair tucked into a beanie. The biohazard bin was exactly where Tanya said it would be. Behind the building, padlocked but not alarmed. The lock was cheap. I'd bought bolt cutters from Home Depot that morning, and it snapped on the second try. Inside were dozens of red bags, dated and labeled. I searched with gloved hands, my heart hammering. November 4th, November 7th, November 11th. That would be Bella's last appointment. I grabbed the bag, sealed it in the cooler, locked the bin, and ran. I was back in my car, hyperventilating, when Bella's G-Wagon pulled into the parking lot. She walked inside at 3:28, right on time, completely oblivious that I'd just stolen her blood. I sat there, clutching the cooler, and started laughing. Not a happy laugh, a slightly unhinged laugh, but I had it. I had Bella's DNA. And now I just needed Gavin's, and the guy in the Civic, and a lab that wouldn't ask questions. Getting Gavin's DNA was almost too easy. I'd lived with the man for 8 years. I knew his routines better than he did. Every Monday morning, he went to Preston Proper, this boutique juice bar where a 16-ounce green juice cost $14. He'd order the executive cleanse, take exactly 3 phone calls while nursing it on the patio, then leave the cup on the table for the staff to clean up. Creature of habit. Predictable. Weak. I went on Monday, November 21st, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, looking like every other exhausted woman seeking an overpriced caffeine fix. I ordered a latte I couldn't afford and sat 3 tables away. At 8:47 a.m., right on schedule, Gavin arrived. He looked good. I hated that I noticed. Tailored suit, fresh haircut, that confident stride of a man who thought he'd won. He left at 9:15, abandoning his half-finished juice like he always did. The moment his car pulled away, I moved. I grabbed the cup, my hands shaking, and slipped it into a plastic bag. The straw still had moisture on it. His lips had touched that straw 20 minutes ago. It felt intimate and violating all at once, like stealing a piece of him, which, I guess, is exactly what I was doing. I walked back to my car and added the bag to my cooler. Sample 1, Bella's blood. Sample 2, Gavin's saliva. Now I just needed sample 3, the wild card, the guy in the Honda Civic. Finding him was harder. I didn't have a name, didn't have a license plate. All I had was a vague description and the knowledge that he'd shown up at the mansion twice. So I did what any reasonable person spiraling into obsession would do. I stalked Bella's social media going back 2 years. Every photo, every tagged location, every comment. It took me 48 hours and 3 large coffees, but I found him. His name was Ryan Kozlowski. He'd been tagged in exactly 4 of Bella's photos from 18 months ago, before she'd met Gavin, back when she was working as a promotional model at car shows. In the photos, Ryan's arm was around her waist, possessive. The last photo was dated March 2023. Bella's caption, "Sometimes you have to leave the past behind to step into your future." Ryan had commented, "You'll regret this." She'd deleted it, but screenshots live forever. I found Ryan's profile. Public, thank God. The guy posted everything, where he worked, an auto body shop called Kozlowski & Sons in the industrial district, what he ate, a lot of buffalo wings, and where he drank, a dive bar called Rusty's every Friday night. His latest post, from 3 days ago. "Can't believe some people try to steal what's rightfully yours. Karma's coming." The comments were a disaster. His friends egging him on, asking what happened, speculating about baby mama drama. This guy was a ticking time bomb, and I was about to light the fuse. Friday, November 25th. Thanksgiving had passed in a blur. At 9 p.m., I drove to Rusty's. Neon beer signs, sticky floors, the smell of cigarettes that had somehow survived the smoking ban. Ryan was at the bar, wearing a stained flannel, nursing a Budweiser and looking like he wanted to fight the world. I sat 3 stools down, ordered a vodka soda I wouldn't drink, and waited. By 10:30, Ryan was 4 beers deep and arguing loudly with the bartender about a football game. Perfect. I accidentally bumped into him on my way to the bathroom. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. He squinted at me. Do I know you? My heart stopped, but then he shook his head. Nah, you just look like someone. I forced a smile. I get that a lot. Hey, can I buy you a drink? As an apology? We talked, or rather, he talked, and I listened. About his job, his ex-girlfriend who screwed him over, his dreams of opening his own shop someday. He didn't mention Bella by name, but I could feel her presence in every bitter word. Women like that, he said, leaning close. They think they can just use you and throw you away. But I got proof, and when that baby's born, everybody's gonna know the truth. I asked innocent questions, and eventually, he pulled out his phone. See this? He showed me a photo of Bella, dated March 2023, her hand on a barely visible bump. She was with me. 3 months we were together after this. Then suddenly she's pregnant with some rich guy's kid. Math doesn't lie. He went to the bathroom at 11, leaving his beer on the bar. I didn't even think. I just grabbed it, wrapped it in a napkin, and slipped it into my purse. When he came back, I made an excuse about an early morning and left. He didn't even remember my face. Just another woman in a bar. But I had what I needed. Sample 3, Ryan's DNA. The Holy Trinity was complete. The lab was the hardest part. Legitimate paternity testing companies require consent forms, notarized documents, chain of custody paperwork, none of which I had. But the internet led me to a company called Gene Truth Labs. Their FAQ had a very interesting section. We provide testing for personal knowledge purposes. We do not require identification or consent forms, but results cannot be used in court. Perfect. I didn't need court. I needed truth. I shipped the samples overnight. Bella's blood in a vial I'd separated out wearing gloves, Gavin's saliva from the straw, and Ryan's saliva from the beer bottle. The lab called me 2 days later. Ms. Johnson? I'd used a fake name, paid with a prepaid Visa card. We've completed the analysis. The results are unusual. The maternal sample contains fetal DNA, as expected. We ran paternity probability against both male samples. Sample A shows 0.0% probability of paternity. Sample B shows 99.97% probability. I closed my eyes. You're absolutely certain. Ms. Johnson, DNA doesn't lie. Sample A is definitively not the father. Sample B is almost certainly the biological father. I thanked him and hung up. The email arrived 10 minutes later. I printed 3 copies at a FedEx office, using cash. 1 for me, 1 for Gavin, and 1 for the trust fund lawyer. The invitation arrived December 1st. Thick cardstock, gold-embossed lettering, the kind of excessive stationery that screamed we have more money than taste. You're invited to celebrate the upcoming arrival of baby boy Lawson, December 10th, 2 p.m., Lawson Estate. And handwritten at the bottom, in Gavin's distinctive scrawl, Elena, thought you'd want to see what a real family looks like. Feel free to attend and pay your respects to what could have been... G. I stared at that invitation for a full hour. The cruelty of it, the calculated viciousness. He wasn't inviting me because he wanted me there. He was inviting me to torture me, to make me watch him celebrate his victory, his heir, his $20 million payday. What Gavin didn't understand, what men like him never understand, is that cruelty is a weapon that can be turned around. And I'd just spent 6 weeks forging my own blade. I RSVP'd immediately. I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I'll bring a gift you'll never forget. Then I called a drone rental company. I need your most reliable model. It needs to carry about 8 ounces, fly precisely to GPS coordinates, and land on a table without crashing. The operator laughed. Lady, you're either proposing or destroying a marriage. I smiled for the first time in months. Neither. I'm delivering justice. December 10th arrived with perfect weather. Sunny, crisp, the kind of day that makes you believe in fresh starts and happy endings. I stood in front of Miranda's bathroom mirror at noon, putting on the dress I'd bought from a consignment shop. Navy blue, simple, elegant, not trying too hard, not looking broken, just present. Miranda watched from the doorway, her arms crossed. "Elena, are you absolutely sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back." I met her eyes in the mirror. There was no going back the moment he threw me out in the rain. This isn't about going back. This is about going forward. And I can't go forward until I burn this bridge completely. She nodded slowly. "Then burn it bright, babe. Make sure they see the flames from space." The drone operator, a college kid named Marcus who clearly thought this was the coolest gig he'd ever booked, was already in position 3 blocks away. The red envelope sat in my purse, sealed with gold wax I'd bought specifically for dramatic effect. Inside, 3 copies of the DNA report, printed on official letterhead, highlighted in yellow where it mattered most. Sample A, Gavin Lawson, 0.0% probability of paternity. Sample B, Ryan Kozlowski, 99.97% probability of paternity. I arrived at the mansion at 2:47, fashionably late, but not so late that I'd miss anything important. The gate was open. They'd hired valet service, and I drove Miranda's Honda right up the circular driveway like I owned the place, because I had owned it, once. A lifetime ago. The party was excessive. White and gold everywhere. A champagne fountain, a string quartet playing something classical. Tables loaded with food from the most expensive caterer in the city. Balloon arches spelling out baby boy in gold mylar. And people, so many people. Business associates, society friends. People I'd invited to our wedding who'd ghosted me the moment Gavin announced the divorce. They all looked happy, comfortable. Like this wasn't the most grotesque celebration of fraud I'd ever witnessed. Bella held court in the center, wearing a white maternity gown that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked radiant. The bump was huge now, ready to pop any day. And Gavin stood beside her, his hand on her lower back, looking like a king surveying his kingdom. He saw me the moment I walked in. His smile faltered for just a second. Surprise, maybe anger, but then it returned, wider, more vicious. He whispered something to Bella. She turned, saw me, and her smile turned sharp as broken glass. Gavin crossed the room toward me, champagne flute in hand. "Elena, I'm shocked you actually came." His voice was loud enough that nearby guests turned to watch. Conversations stopped. The room got quiet. This was intentional. He was making a show of me. "And I thought you might be too embarrassed." I smiled calmly. "Why would I be embarrassed? I'm just here to celebrate the happy couple and to deliver my gift." I held up the red envelope. "Though I think it's really more for you than the baby." He laughed, that condescending chuckle that used to make me feel small. How thoughtful. Though I can't imagine you could afford anything that would— "Oh, this didn't cost me much," I interrupted. "Just 6 weeks of my life and every ounce of self-respect I had left. But it was worth it. Trust me." I handed him the envelope. He took it, confused now, his smile slipping. "Maybe open it after the cake," I suggested sweetly. "Or actually, no. Open it now. I think everyone here would love to see what I got you." The moment stretched. Gavin looked at the envelope, then at me, then at Bella, who'd gone very pale very quickly. She knew. Somehow. She knew. "Gavin," she said, her voice tight. "Baby, let's open gifts later." But Gavin was already tearing it open, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Something about my tone had triggered his paranoia. He pulled out the papers, started reading, and I watched. God, I watched. as the color drained from his face in real time. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, the trust fund executor, noticed Gavin's reaction and moved closer. "Gavin, is everything all right?" Gavin couldn't speak. His hands were shaking, so I spoke for him. "Mr. Henderson, I think you'll want to see this. It's a paternity test, independent laboratory, DNA analysis of the baby Bella's carrying." I raised my voice so everyone could hear. "Turns out, Gavin's not the father. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. But Ryan Kozlowski is, probability, 99.97%. Congratulations, Gavin. You're throwing a baby shower for another man's child." The room exploded. Not loudly. Wealthy people don't make scenes with noise. They make scenes with silence. The kind of silence that suffocates. Every single person stopped moving, stopped breathing. The string quartet's music cut off mid-note. Mr. Henderson snatched the papers from Gavin's trembling hands and read them, his face hardening with each line. Bella stood frozen, her hand still on her belly, her mouth forming words that wouldn't come out. And then my phone buzzed, right on cue. I looked at the screen and smiled. "Oh, perfect timing." I gestured toward the front gate. "I have one more surprise. I hope nobody minds." The drone rose over the hedges like an avenging angel. People gasped. It circled once, then descended smoothly, landing directly on the gift table and knocking over a tower of pristine white boxes. A few guests screamed. The drone's mechanical arms released a small package. Then Marcus's voice came through the speaker, pre-recorded by me. "Special delivery for Ryan Kozlowski. Please come to the front gate to claim your son." And that's when Ryan appeared. I'd sent him an anonymous text 2 hours earlier. "The father of Bella Martinez's baby is invited to collect what's rightfully his. Lawson Estate, 3 p.m. Bring ID." He stood at the open gate in his stained jeans and flannel, looking wildly out of place among the Teslas and designer suits. "Bella!" he shouted. "I got a text saying to come here. What the hell is going on?" Bella made a sound, half sob, half scream, and tried to run. But she was 8 months pregnant and wearing heels. She made it 3 steps before stumbling. Gavin caught her, but not gently. He grabbed her arm, his face twisted with rage. "Is this true? Bella, is this true?" She was crying now, mascara running, the perfect facade cracking. "Gavin, I can explain. It was a mistake. I didn't know." "You didn't know," he laughed, wild and broken. "You didn't know whose baby you were carrying, or you didn't know if you could get away with it." Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "Mr. Lawson, according to Clause 7B of your grandfather's trust, any attempt to defraud the conditions of inheritance results in immediate and permanent forfeiture of all funds. This DNA evidence, combined with the timeline, this is fraud, clear, deliberate fraud." Ryan was walking up the driveway now, confused but angry. "Someone gonna tell me what's happening? Is that my kid or not?" Bella crumpled, just collapsed onto the ground, sobbing, her hands over her face. "Yes," she wailed. "Yes, it's yours, okay? It's yours. I thought if I could just get Gavin to marry me before it was born, if I could just get him to sign the birth certificate, nobody would ever know." Gavin dropped her arm like it was on fire. He turned to me, his eyes wide, destroyed. "You did this? You planned all of this?" I smiled. The first genuine smile I'd felt in months. "I didn't plan anything, Gavin. I just revealed the truth. You're the one who chose to throw away a faithful wife for a stranger's baby. I just made sure everyone knew about it before you collected your $20 million in blood money." I looked at Mr. Henderson. "The trust fund reverts to charity now, right?" Mr. Henderson nodded grimly. "The Santa Clara Orphanage, per Theodore Lawson's wishes. Every penny." He looked at Gavin. "I'm sorry. But you've violated the terms. There's nothing I can do." Gavin's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the driveway, right there in his expensive suit, surrounded by shocked guests and abandoned champagne flutes. And as I turned to leave, because I'd seen enough, done enough, won enough, I heard him call my name. "Elena. Elena, please, we can fix this. We can—" I stopped, turned back. "Fix this." "Gavin, there's nothing to fix. You gambled everything on a lie, and you lost. That's not my problem anymore." I walked down the driveway, past Ryan, who was now arguing with Bella, past the drone still sitting on the gift table, past every single person who'd watched me get thrown away and said nothing. Miranda was waiting at the end of the street in her car. I got in and we drove away. And as the mansion disappeared in the rearview mirror, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Light, free, victorious. The fallout was immediate and brutal. I didn't stick around to watch it all unfold in person. I had no desire to see Gavin crumble any more than I already had. But the internet did the work for me. By that evening, videos of the baby shower disaster were everywhere. Someone had filmed the drone landing. Someone else had caught Bella's confession on their phone. Another guest had recorded Gavin sitting on the driveway, head in his hands, while Ryan and Bella screamed at each other in the background. It went viral. Not just locally, nationally. Tech Heir loses $20 million trust fund to pregnant Mistress paternity fraud was trending on Twitter by midnight. The comments were ruthless. Memes were created. Gavin Lawson became a cautionary tale about greed, stupidity, and trusting the wrong woman. But the real damage wasn't just social embarrassment, it was financial devastation. Within 48 hours, Mr. Henderson had filed the paperwork transferring the entire $20 million trust fund to the Santa Clara orphanage, per Theodore Lawson's explicit instructions. Gavin tried to fight it. Of course he did. But his grandfather's legal team had built that trust like a fortress. The language was ironclad. Any attempt to circumvent, defraud, or misrepresent the conditions of this trust shall result in immediate and permanent forfeiture of all assets contained herein. Gavin had no case. He'd been so confident, so arrogant, so certain that Bella's baby was his golden ticket. He hadn't even considered the possibility that he was being played. And Bella? She disappeared. Not physically. She was too pregnant to run, but socially. Her Instagram went private. Her phone number changed. Ryan, for all his anger and posturing, actually stepped up. I heard through the grapevine that he moved her into his mother's house in the suburbs, far away from the mansion and the scandal. Whether it was out of genuine care or just spite toward Gavin, I didn't know and didn't care. What I did know was that Bella had gambled on luxury and lost everything. She'd traded a mechanic who actually loved her for a rich man who saw her as livestock. And now she was back where she started, except with a baby, a ruined reputation, and no prospects. Gavin, meanwhile, was in complete freefall. The pharmaceutical company he'd inherited started hemorrhaging clients. Nobody wanted to do business with the guy who'd become a national joke. His board of directors called an emergency meeting and strongly suggested he take a leave of absence. Translation: they pushed him out. The mansion, the one he'd thrown me out of, the one he'd installed Bella in like a queen, went up for sale within a month. Turns out Gavin had been living beyond his means for years, banking everything on that trust fund payout. Without it, he couldn't afford the mortgage, the cars, the lifestyle. Everything had to go. I watched it all unfold from the safety of Miranda's couch, scrolling through news articles and social media posts with a cup of tea in my hand. Dorothy had given me a raise at the bookstore. Not much, but enough that I could finally afford a studio apartment of my own. It was tiny. 600 square feet, a kitchen the size of a closet, a bathroom where you could sit on the toilet and wash your hands in the sink simultaneously. But it was mine. Nobody could take it from me. Nobody could throw me out in the rain. For the first time in months, I had a space that belonged only to me. Miranda asked me once if I felt guilty, if I regretted destroying Gavin's life so completely. I thought about it for a long time before answering. He destroyed his own life, I finally said. He chose to chase money over integrity. He chose to throw away a marriage for a shortcut to wealth. He chose to believe Bella's lies because it was convenient. I didn't make any of those choices for him. I just made sure the truth came out before he could profit from fraud. She nodded, satisfied with that answer. And honestly, so was I. The final piece of closure came in February. I was at work, shelving mystery novels in the back section, when Dorothy called me to the front desk. "Someone here to see you," she said, her voice careful. My heart jumped. I thought maybe it was Gavin, coming to beg or threaten or make one last desperate attempt to salvage something. But it wasn't. It was Mr. Henderson, the trust fund lawyer, holding a manila envelope and looking oddly uncomfortable. "Ms. Lawson," he said formally. I apologize for the intrusion, but I wanted to deliver this personally." He handed me the envelope. Inside was a check, made out to me, for $50,000. I stared at it, confused. "I don't understand. What is this?" Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Theodore Lawson was many things, but he was also a romantic. When he structured the trust, he included a secondary clause that very few people knew about. In the event that the primary heir engaged in fraudulent activity resulting in forfeiture of the trust, and if that fraud involved the mistreatment or abandonment of a lawful spouse, said spouse would be entitled to a compensatory payment as recognition of damages suffered. He looked at me with something almost like respect. "You were legally married to Gavin when he abandoned you for Mrs. Martinez. The trust recognizes that. This is your compensation. It's not the full $20 million, obviously, but Mr. Lawson believed in justice, and apparently, so do you." I took the check with shaking hands. $50,000. It wasn't generational wealth. It wasn't revenge money, but it was enough to start over. Really start over. Enough for first and last month's rent on a better apartment. Enough to buy a car that didn't smell like old French fries. Enough to breathe without panic, to sleep without nightmares, to wake up and not immediately check my bank account in fear. "Thank you," I whispered. Mr. Henderson nodded once, turned, and left. And I stood there in that little bookstore, holding a check that represented not just money, but validation. Theodore Lawson, a man I'd never met, who died long before I entered Gavin's life, had somehow seen this possibility, had somehow known that his grandson might be cruel, might be foolish, might throw away something real for something fake, and he'd built in a safeguard, a small act of justice from beyond the grave. 6 months later, I was standing in my new flower shop, arranging white peonies in a crystal vase, when I saw the headline on my phone: "Lawson Estate sells at auction for 60% below market value." I clicked the article. There was a photo of the mansion, my old home, looking somehow smaller than I remembered. Sadder. The gardens were overgrown. The fountain in the courtyard was turned off. It looked like what it was, a monument to failed ambition and broken dreams. The article mentioned that Gavin had relocated to Seattle, taken a middle management position at a mid-tier pharmaceutical distributor. No mention of Bella, no mention of the baby. Just a man who'd once had everything and lost it all chasing more. I set down my phone and looked around my shop, Page and Petal. I'd named it, a nod to Dorothy and the bookstore that had saved me when I had nothing. The space was small but beautiful. Exposed brick walls, vintage wooden shelves lined with vases and ribbons, the smell of fresh flowers and possibility. I'd used Theodore's $50,000 wisely. Rented the space, bought inventory, hired a part-time assistant, a college student named Maya who reminded me of myself at that age, full of hope and ambition. We weren't profitable yet, but we were close, and more importantly, I was happy. Actually, happy. Not the performative happiness I'd faked during my marriage, but the real kind. The kind that comes from building something with your own hands. Dorothy stopped by that afternoon with coffee and pastries, like she did every Thursday. We sat in the back room, surrounded by buckets of roses and eucalyptus, and she asked the question I'd been waiting for. Do you ever think about him? About what could have been if he'd just been honest? I considered it. Sometimes, I admitted, but not in the way you'd think. I don't miss him. I don't even hate him anymore. I just feel sorry for him. He had everything: a home, a partner who loved him, a life that was real, and he traded it all for a fantasy. For money he never even got. That's not tragedy. That's just stupidity. She laughed, that warm, throaty sound that always made me smile. You know what I love about you, Elena. You didn't let what he did define you. You didn't become bitter or broken. You became better. I shook my head. I don't know about better, but I definitely became stronger, and smarter, and a hell of a lot more careful about who I trust. We clinked our coffee cups together, a small toast to survival, to resilience, to the strange and winding path that had led me from a mansion in the rain to a flower shop in spring. That night, I locked up the shop and walked to my car, a used Honda CR-V, nothing fancy, but mine and paid in full. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, just breathing in the quiet. My phone buzzed. A text from Miranda. Dinner this weekend? I want to hear about the wedding order you landed. I smiled and texted back, absolutely, my treat this time. And as I drove home through the city streets, past the neighborhoods where I used to live, past the life I used to have, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace, not closure. I don't think you ever fully close a chapter that painful, but acceptance, understanding. The knowledge that I'd survived something designed to destroy me, and I'd come out the other side not just intact, but transformed. Gavin had thought he could discard me like I was nothing. He'd thought my only value was in what I could give him. A child, a legacy, a key to his grandfather's fortune. He'd been so wrong. My value wasn't in what I could produce or provide. It was in who I was, in my resilience, my intelligence, my capacity to fight back when cornered. He'd thrown me out in the rain expecting me to disappear, to fade away into obscurity and irrelevance. Instead, I'd become the storm that destroyed his entire world. And honestly, I wouldn't change a single thing. I used a drone and a DNA test to expose my husband's fraud, but the next story takes cold revenge even further. Picture this. A wife sees her husband's phone light up at dinner. The message from his 23-year-old intern reads, I miss your touch. When can I see you again? Instead of confronting him, she unlocks his phone and replies as him, My wife just left. Come over now. 20 minutes later, the intern arrives expecting romance. Instead, she finds the wife waiting with 2 glasses of water in plastic cups. What happened in the 47-minute conversation that followed destroyed the affair so completely the intern quit her job the next day. No screaming, no drama, just surgical precision. That story is next.